Hi everybody, my name's Kingnusmi. It's been about 5 or 6 months since I've talked about anything Creepshow related on the channel, so I think it's about time we revive that series. And what better episode to revive it than Season 2's Night of the Living Late Show. It's an episode that is, well, it's something, that's for sure. At least it has Justin Long in it, so that's awesome. But before we get into the episode, most people know Creepshow from the pretty great 2 movies that were made in the 80s, and those are the only 2 that exist. We don't talk about that other one. We pretend it's not there. But a surprising amount of people aren't aware that there was a short-lived TV series that lasted for 4 years and 4 seasons. The show was mostly loved by fans, and it has some of the best practical effects and coolest monsters, including werewolves, zombies, scarecrows, surprisingly cute aliens, and some more unique monsters like a queen bee or even a flower. Today we're going to take a look at Night of the Living Late Show, the 5th episode of the 2nd season. It was directed by the show creator Greg Nicotero, and if you somehow don't know who he is, Greg Nicotero is an incredible special effects artist who's done work on so many movies and TV shows. You've seen his work if you've watched The Walking Dead, Battle Angel Alita, The Haunting Hour movie, Scream, or most importantly, Mr. Cranston's bald cap in El Camino. He's the showrunner for Creepshow and directed 13 of the episodes himself. The episode was written by Dana Gold, who was Henry in the Skinwalker segment in season 1, which is pretty awesome, but sadly, this is the only episode he wrote for the whole series. Kinda wish he did a few more. This episode is one of the more unique episodes in the show. First of all, it's the only episode outside of the specials to take up a full episode and not be split into 2 different segments. And it really isn't that gory or has some big scary monster chasing them the whole time. Kinda. Instead, it focuses more on the obsession some people have with technology and our main character inventing a way to literally put himself into old movies, and he gets a little too attached to the characters in said movie. But I don't want to spoil too much of the episode because we're about to talk about it. This episode also has a lot of fun Easter eggs and references to really old movies, so it should be a fun video, and I've definitely talked enough, so let's quit yapping and get into the episode. The episode starts with the creep stealing a VR headset from a dead guy. Well, I guess he's not going to be using it anymore anyways. He loads into a video game version of the 1968 movie Night of the Living Dead, which was made by George A. Romero, who made the original Creepshow movies along with Stephen King. Right when he loads in, the creep is faced with 3 gravestones, each with names of characters from the movie. As the creep chooses which of the 3 he wants to play as, each gravestone says an iconic line from the movie.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I'll drag you out in invisible space.
Well, it's 8 o'clock and it's still light.
The creep chooses Barbara, and they pretty much just recreate the whole opening scene from the movie with her kneeling at her dad's gravestone when she's attacked by a zombie. Except in the VR game, she pulls out a revolver and starts blasting the zombies around her. She escapes to her car just like in the movie, but sadly the creep wasted all his ammo and gets a very quick game over. Then we move on to the pretty awesome comic cover for this episode, and through the comic pages you can briefly see some covers to the other episodes in the show. One being The Companion with the scarecrow that I've talked about on this channel before, and the other Survivor type, which I haven't talked about or even seen yet, actually. And there is another one right here, but I can't tell what it is. I tried comparing it to every other episode in season 1 and 2, and I just couldn't find one similar. Then we finally move on to the introduction paragraph, so sit down and get your skull-shaped popcorn ready. It's about to get crazy. Hi, gang. Pull up a chair and make some popcorn. Dude, I just said that. Because today you're in for a ride of your life. Which of the bravest among you are ready to immerse yourselves in a delightful dreary ditty in which a man's cinematic lust will earn him a guest spot on the Night of the Living Late Show? Then we fade into the show and meet our main character, Simon, played by Justin Long. Simon is a very smart guy, and he has been spending all of his time working on a machine called the Immersipod to put you inside your favorite movies. And this is his first time booting the machine up, and I gotta say, it does look pretty sweet, but also kind of like a death contraption. All I can picture is the scene from Final Destination. Is it gonna cook me? Am I gonna cook in there? Simon hops into the machine and it automatically closes on him and slides a VR headset over his head. He chooses from a bunch of movies, including Night of the Living Dead, as well as one called The Cyclops with 3 Eyes, which isn't an actual movie. Also, that's called a Triclops. And another called Invasion of the Eye Gougers, another spoof movie, probably making fun of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And this picture, which is actually just a cover for the episode The Right Snuff. And a few more that I'll make fun of later when I can think of jokes for them. Finally, he lands on his favorite B-horror movie, Horror Express, which is an actual movie that was made in 1972 and has some shockingly good actors in it, like Peter Cushing and Telly Savalas, or that guy that was really mean to the doll in The Twilight Zone. And most shocking, Christopher Lee. It's crazy seeing a young Christopher Lee. He was always just an old man to me. I assumed he came out of the womb old. Simon Simon is genuinely shocked that his invention actually works. But before anything happens with Simon, we cut to a Chinese man who is seen picking the lock to this covered crate and taking a peek at whatever's inside. We don't get to see what it is, but I can promise you, it's nothing good. Simon tries his best to calm down and gather his thoughts, but he just can't. He's too excited. He just runs around the movie like it's a playground, which is understandable. I think if any of us were teleported into our favorite movie, we would probably act the same way. Simon is absolutely starstruck when he meets Christopher Lee, who's playing a guy named Alexander Saxton in this movie, but he does mention that he once played Dracula.
Well, not just Dracula, you're Frankenstein, the Mummy.
And Count Dooku, and that one guy from Lord of the Rings that everybody thinks is Gandalf for some reason. But of course he has to keep the movie illusion going, so he informs Sir Saxton and everyone else about the monster in the crate. And with some pretty wonky looking green screen movement, he reveals what the monster does if you look at it. The other characters seem to just ignore Simon and his many annoying quips.
It's Christopher Lee! Dead. Sorry. Yeah, fossils, yeah, you wish, pal. No offense, I actually never noticed you in the movie, but I remember you. You look the same.
While they question Saxton about what's really going on in the box, which he claims is only fossils and a laboratory experiment with no value to anyone else except for him. Then, after some men load the crate onto a train, Saxton opens a window in the massive crate to reveal a decaying man basically melting inside of it. I wonder if this is where they got the idea for the crate segment in the first Creepshow movie. There's a lot of similarities in the two. All while Simon just can't fathom that his invention actually works and how rich he's going to be because of it. So he logs off for the day and shows his wife Renee that he finally got his invention to work, and he tells her how it works, which she kinda needed because she didn't even know what a VR headset was. So the casket looking part, it has a bunch of cameras inside of it. The cameras scan the user's body and that gets turned into data, and that data can be merged with any other pre-existing data, aka old horror movies with a hot girl in it. And the VR headset also works as a neurotransmitter. So when you imagine yourself moving in your brain, you move in the movie. He tells her that it worked with his favorite horror movie, Horror Express, which was also the first non-kids movie he saw in theaters with his dad. There's also a special character in the movie that he fell in love with named Irina. Simon tries his best to get Renee to get inside the pod and try it for herself, but she's a bit wary of the device and is also claustrophobic. So to make her more comfortable with it, he compares it to dreaming. Sure, in reality, you're in this really tight pod with a bunch of cameras scanning your body all the time, but you feel like you're in an open space and moving around and having fun. For example, you could be running in your dream but not really going anywhere in real life. You're just laying down in bed. The pod pretty much works in the same way. He even gives her some reasons why people would want one and how they're gonna get rich off of it. He says men or women that are lonely, sad, living a dead-end life, or sad in a dead-end marriage, they could use the pod as an escape from all that. But even after all his explanations and trying to dumb down the big techie words he likes to use, Renee still isn't jazzed about trying the machine. And she actually seems a bit hurt by his explanation of the immersipod, thinking he only invented it as a way to escape from their marriage. Because using context clues, you can figure out that they're not in the happiest of marriages. He also just kinda said it 2 seconds ago. And it's even revealed that Renee's dad didn't want them to get married because he was afraid Simon was just using Renee because their family has money. Her dad told her that he would never actually love her, he just wants her for a bank so he can invent some things. But she went on and married him anyway, which pissed her dad off, and he's probably gonna be mad at her for the rest of their marriage. Simon is a little offended that she thinks he's trying to escape her and their marriage in some way, and assures Renee that he really does love her. Till death do them part. Later that night, Simon sneaks off to spend some more time in the world of Horror Express, where he meets with his childhood crush, Countess Irina, and tries his best to pretend that he's British, but he's not very good at it.
England, of course, yes, where I'm from. Yes, cheers.
He does shout out Edgar Wright though, so that's pretty cool of him. He does manage to get Irina alone because they meet in the storage room of the train and her dog can sense the monster in the crate and it just kept yapping and barking at it. So they decide to go somewhere more peaceful. But that's when we leave them two to do what they want. And we watch as the monster comes to life and breaks the chains to the crate and tries to open it. Luckily, this guy named Malatero is able to hold the monster off for a second until he catches a glimpse of the monster's piercing red eye. Malatero begins to panic and his eyes begin to bleed, and before he knows it, he's blind, bleeding out of every hole in his face as he falls to the floor dead. Quite the horrifying death, honestly. Back in the real world, Renee wakes up in the middle of the night to find Simon missing. And the next morning, she waits on him to finish with his immersopod and asks him what time he got up because she knows he's been up for a while. He just straight lies to her and tells her that he barely beat his alarm this morning and he's been working for a while. But I'm sure she's used to his little white lies like that, so she just ignores it and says that they should celebrate that he finally finished his invention. And she books reservations to a restaurant that they would go to before they got married. But Simon just lazily agrees with her and doesn't even finish their conversation before walking away and going to sleep. Luckily, she doesn't angrily wake him up like I would have done. She just leaves him a nice little note telling him that she's going to go buy a new dress for their dinner date. And when Simon sees this note, he excitedly gets out of bed and puts on a nice suit. But he's not excited about his date with Renee. No, he hops back into the immersopod because he has a virtual date with Irina. But before we get to see their date, we get a small clip of the men checking on the crate. Simon! Get the fuck out of here! All of the other men are tired of Saxton being so secretive about what's going on with the box. So one of the guys orders another one to break the lock with an axe. And when they finally get the crate open, they don't find the monster inside, but they do find Malatero's dead body. Peter Cushing's character is horrified that his baggage boy is... Bro, Simon, come on! I'm trying to do important stuff here. Anyways, they're upset to find a dead body inside the crate. Jeez, I'm beginning to wonder why Renee married this guy. Next, we cut to Countess Irina and Simon's date, where they kind of obviously swap out the actress to make the scene work a bit better. But if that's the case, I don't see why they still green screen them into the movie. Couldn't they just remake the train car so it at least looks a bit better? I mean, I guess the green screen was probably a cheaper way of doing things, but still. Irina asks Simon if he's heard about the murders on the train, which of course he has. He's seen this movie like a million times. But he assures Irina that she's safe with him and he will protect her. Okay, that's like me telling my girlfriend I'm gonna protect her from the Hulk. Sorry, honey, we're dead. But Irina doesn't trust Simon. She thinks he will only bring trouble. Then suddenly Simon just confesses his love for Irina and how he's loved her for all his life, even though they just met for her. And then they start swapping saliva in the train car. But while he's cheating on his wife in virtual reality, Renee comes home with a pretty new dress for their dinner date, unaware that her husband was just making out with pixels a couple of moments ago. When Renee finally makes it inside, she finds Simon sleeping on a chair in their living room. Also, how did he get out of that pod so quickly? He kind of panics and then makes up this lie that he's starting to feel a little sick, and he tells her that she should go on the dinner date anyways with maybe a friend or even go alone while he rests at home and tries to feel better. Renee plays into another one of his obvious lies and pretends to leave, but really she just goes to her car and calls her dad to tell him that Simon made an invention and it actually works. And when she tells her dad that his invention actually worked, her dad really isn't that impressed that he invented something. He doesn't even ask what it is or how it works. All he says is,
Who paid for it?
and when she tells him that not everything's about the money, his only question is,
You sure about that?
And this scene is honestly really kind of sad for me because you can really tell that Renee wants to stay in this marriage and she wants to be happy for Simon. She's doing all the right things to fix their marriage, but Simon just keeps kind of blowing her off like she's the side chick. And this little interaction pushes Renee to actually investigate her husband. Instead of going to the dinner reservations, she goes back inside and doesn't find him resting in the bed like he said he would be. He is actually butt naked in his immersopod, which I can only assume means he and Irina are doing the dirty. But do you really have to be butt naked in the pod? You're just giving all those cameras full frontal, dude. No one wants to see that. Now that Renee has solid proof that he's been lying to her this whole time, she decides it's time for her to get some revenge. She waits for Simon to be asleep and then she conquers her claustrophobia and goes inside the pod herself. In the movie, we see that Peter Cushing's character, Dr. Wells, is examining Malatero's body. He takes off the top of his skull where he finds that his brain is completely smooth, almost as smooth as Walter White's bald cap. Of course, having a smooth brain means that Malatero was sucked dry of all his memories and all the information his brain had. But while they do that, Renee finds Irina and her husband in another train car. She tells him that Irina has been sleeping with her husband, Simon. But Irina isn't going to take anything from a random woman she's never met or seen before, and she tells her,
He will never be yours.
and slaps Renee across the face. Also, she just admitted to actually cheating on her husband with him right there. Renee chases Irina throughout the train as Irina is shouting insults at her, but Renee stops in the room with the crate and the dead body. She's tired of running around this train, chasing a woman that she hates in a movie that she hates, and she doesn't ever want to come back in this immersopod. But that's when the monster grabs Renee and tries his best to kill her. Luckily, Renee has an easy escape from the beast and makes it out alive. But her eyes are bleeding in real life like they were in the movie. So that means whatever happens in the movie will happen to the person in real life. The next morning, Simon wakes up and finds that Renee cooked him a nice breakfast, and she also mysteriously has all kinds of tools laid out on the table. She claims that the sink was leaking, so she tried to fix it, but she offers that Simon sit down and eat some breakfast with her. But he says he's very busy with the pod, so he'll just have some coffee, and then he tries to walk away without taking the coffee. Renee calls him out for this to see if he will lie to her again, which he does, of course. So he hesitantly grabs the coffee from her, but doesn't drink it. He sets it down in his room and boots up the immersipod again and heads back in to hang out with his real love, Irina. But little did he know, Renee spent all night figuring out the immersipod and how to control it. And she figured out that she could control which movie is selected from the outside. And she makes him go into Night of the Living Dead instead of Horror Express. Also, there's some more Easter eggs here. 2 more Creepshow comic covers can be seen right here. This one being my favorite segment, Model Kid. And the one right next to it is the cover for the episode Pesticide. Also, critter looking That's all I got. That's all I thought up. Guys, I need help. I'm running out of jokes. When Simon is teleported into Night of the Living Dead, he really isn't sure what's happening at first, but he doesn't plan on sticking around very long, so he tries to leave, but right before he can press the button, Renee cuts off his thumb in real life using the garden shears on the table. And from what we learned just a few seconds ago, whatever happens in real life happens in the movie, whatever happens in the movie happens in real life. And with no thumb, Simon is trapped in the zombie movie until his eventual demise, as Renee listens to his cries for help from right outside the pod. Then we teleport back to the creep still playing that game, Night of the Living Dead, but this time he travels through all the movies, starting at the famous farmhouse in Night of the Living Dead, and then using a helicopter to go to the mall from Dawn of the Dead, and then going down the cargo elevator that is in Day of the Dead. And then it ends when the creep is blindsided by an actual zombie outside of the game. I gotta say, the scenes are cool and all, but my God, is the CGI atrocious. Looks like a Dave & Buster's arcade cabinet zombie game, but worse somehow. How does that happen? But that's the end of the episode. I honestly really like this episode. I know most people are like on the fence for it. Some people think it's really bad. Some people think it's really good. I personally think it's just a really fun and a kind of cool idea for an episode. And I would be lying if I said I didn't want one of those immersipods for myself. This thing is awesome. I am a bit confused on how it works though. Like, does the movie work in movie time when you're inside of it? Or does it work in real time when you're inside of it? Like, Simon goes into the movie over a few days, and it seems like time passes a bit slower inside the movie when he's inside of it. Also, when the movie ends, does it just restart from the beginning? If that's the case, then Simon would have to try and woo Irina over and over and over and over, and after a while, it's gonna get pretty annoying and not worth it anymore. I just wish they kind of explained how the pod worked a bit more. I do like that whatever happens in the movie happens to you in real life. Like, imagine being in Friday the 13th and Jason sneaks up on you and stabs you in the face or something, or harpoons you in what's supposed to be a really cool 3D scene but just looks kind of wonky because no one wears 3D glasses in their living room. It would make you a bit more careful when you're inside those movies. But knowing that death is possible if you go into a movie, why would you go into a horror movie? I think going into movies like The Truman Show, Labyrinth, Kung Fu Hustle, something that would be kind of fun to immerse yourself in and also live? I also kind of wonder what would happen if you jumped into an animated movie like The Lion King or Spirited Away. Would it be like a Space Jam situation where I'm just a regular dude hanging out with animated characters? Or would I be turned into an anthropomorphic animal? If so, can I please be a rhino? I love rhinos. Okay, that's enough about the immersipod. There are moments in the episode where the green screen and CGI look really horrible. The lighting was just really off sometimes, or Simon just looks so out of place in some of the scenes. They also just added him in some scenes where I felt like he really didn't need to be there. But it's very easy to shit on bad green screen and CGI. But there is actually a behind the scenes video of them making this episode and seeing how they accomplished this episode by removing characters from the original film, as well as creating faces for some background characters who were covered in the original movie. It's actually kind of awesome to see how much work they put into the episode. They also had to recreate some set pieces from the movie so things could be interactable, like the crate and this door. But that still begs the question, why didn't they recreate the train car scene and just made that look a lot better? Come on, guys, you already did it 2 times. But that video is honestly really cool. You should definitely check it out if you haven't seen it. I just like behind the scenes stuff, so if you're interested, I'll put it here somewhere, wherever the freaking thing is. I obviously enjoy this episode. It feels very campy to me, and everyone loves a bit of camp in their horror movies and shows. I also like how they make Simon almost likable, but also so unlikable. Like, you don't feel bad when he dies, but he was entertaining when he was alive at least. He's just a super dorky guy that basically nerds out for most of the episode because he's in his favorite movie boning his childhood crush, which we would all be hyped about that. Don't act like you wouldn't be. But out of every movie you could choose, you choose a B movie that no one remembers from the 70s? Really, man? Simon is such a dork, which is why Justin Long plays him so perfectly. I've gushed about how much I love Justin Long on this channel before. He's just the best at playing deplorable people, like his character in Barbarian. Horrible guy, dies. It's a Wonderful Knife. Horrible guy, dies. Even in the Goosebumps 2023 show, his character almost ends the world because he wanted an ending to his book. He's mastered this weird typecast, and I eat it up every single time. I'm actually really excited for his new movie Night Patrol where he's a vampire. That's gonna be pretty damn cool. But I do feel so bad for Renee, dude. She tries so hard to make Simon happy and fix their marriage, but I'm starting to think Simon only married her for her money. I do think murdering your husband by cutting off his thumb and letting him be eaten by zombies is kind of awesome, but not warranted. I mean, cheating doesn't equal a death sentence, maybe some divorce papers, but death is taking it a bit too far. But overall, I think the episode is just a ton of fun. I could talk about it for a whole lot longer if I wanted to. I do kind of have to apologize for you guys. I started writing the script for this episode before the poll was finished because I was just 100% sure it was gonna win. I thought it was the best episode out of those. And then Drug Traffic won. And I didn't want to backtrack, so I just kept pushing ahead. So I hope you liked this video. Sorry to scam you, but that's all I've got for you guys today. I have a Patreon. The $5 members get bonus content plus videos a day early, maybe some pictures of my cats, a Discord server, and your name right here on screen. Like the video if you like the video. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate you all, and peace.